Seconds ago, Republican Barbara Kirkmeyer conceded Colorado's 8th congressional race to Democrat Yadira Caraveo, one of two very close congressional races in Colorado tonight, 24 hours out from when the polls closed. The campaigns were focused on the late counting in Weld County, which favored Republicans, and in Adams County, which favored the Democrat Yadira Caraveo. This is the newly drawn district that stretches from north of Denver up toward the Greeley area. And again, just within the last minute or two, Republican Barb Kirkmeyer has conceded this race, despite the fact that it's essentially tied at this point. Caraveo has a bit of a lead, but it tells you what the campaigns think about the vote that is coming in. If possible, I'd like to bring in my colleague, 9 News political reporter Marshall Zellinger, for a closer look at this. And this is a race that late last night, the Kirkmeyer campaign was feeling good about as they were closing a gap on Caraveo. But as it turns out, here we are 23 hours after polls closed, and they now feel like the race is out of reach. Again, want to confirm, we don't have the ability to bring in Marshall on this.
Kyle, I can talk with you over the map right now.
Yep.
As we get this ready to show. Yadira Caraveo leads based on the current numbers by 1,500 votes. And in the 4 o'clock hour, we were waiting for more ballots to come in from Weld County and Adams County. Weld County has already reported. This is the red county that Barb Kirkmeyer needed to get the majority of the votes for to narrow the gap, which she did, but she only narrowed it to about 1,500. Here is likely why she has conceded. The blue county, Adams County, is currently 55% to 40% in favor of Yadira Caraveo. I did some quick math. I talked to the Adams County clerk 5 minutes ago, and he said they have 27,000 outstanding votes. If you do math, of the 27,000 remaining, if you multiply that by 55% and you multiply the 27,000 by 40%, you will start to see the majority of the votes would go in favor of Yadira Caraveo, increasing her overall lead, which right now, when you look at all the counties combined, as I mentioned, 1,500. So the math, based on the map, that's why you would concede in that case, because you're doing the projection like, oh, of the ballots that exist, it's likely going to be, 1 for me, 1 for you, 2 for me, 1 for you, things like that. And that's why, even though the percentage difference is 0.7%, that's likely why we're seeing the concession of Kirkmeyer. And by the way, if you're curious, when it comes to automatic recounts, it is 0.5% of the winning vote total. I know someone's going to ask me to do the math. If this were 100,000, I think it would be 500 votes. So we're just shy of 100,000 total for Caraveo. So it's just shy of 500 votes. That would be need to be the difference for the automatic recount, which we're out of that range right now.
Let's talk about what we're seeing, Marshall, in terms of general strategy and just the fact that Kirkmeyer is willing to call this a race tonight. Kirkmeyer is a staunch conservative. She's been in Colorado politics for something like 30 years. She's not an election denier. She's never really been part of that, not one to drag things out or to cast aspersions on the election system without any kind of evidence. So folks might be surprised, why do we see a Republican conceding a close race like this? But that kind of is who she is. I mean, that's the track record we've seen from her.
Yeah, and then why drag it out if you already know the math's not in your favor? I know it's difficult. I wish I could make the colors more bold here. Red is Weld County, where she had the advantage 58% to 38%, and it appears that most of the votes, if not all of the votes, have already been counted there. That's where she was getting the, hey, I'm going to get 2 votes for every 1 Caraveo vote. But when you have Adams County still having 27,000 votes, that's where Caraveo's getting, as I mentioned, for maybe every 5 votes for Kirkmeyer, Caraveo's getting 6 or 7, and you already know that based on the history over the last over the last 24 hours almost. And so that's why you don't do that. And I mentioned there's Larimer County. We talked about this last night. There's a sliver of Larimer County that is part of this district. It's just not significant enough to have Barb Kirkmeyer, if there were any outstanding ballots in Larimer County, to give her that boost. Now that it's full screen, I'll show you once again. This is the Weld County. That's where Barb Kirkmeyer was getting all the advantage. If those votes have already come in, then it's the 27,000 outstanding votes in Adams County. That's not going to benefit her.
All right, Marshall, thank you. The other close race that we are watching here, 23 hours after the polls close in Colorado, is one that few people inside or outside of politics predicted would be this close. It's Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert's race against Democrat Adam Frisch in Colorado's 3rd congressional district on the western slope and in southern Colorado. Right now, tonight, the race is virtually tied, as Frisch is hoping that there are enough ballots left in counties where he's currently running significant leads that it can put him over the top. There's a very good chance that this race is headed to an automatic recount under state law. Frisch currently holds that razor-thin lead over Boebert of 73 votes, and that is with 97% of votes reported. We rely on the clerks to tell us what percentage of votes they believe they still have left to count. Republican State Senator Don Coram, who unsuccessfully tried to take Boebert out in a GOP primary, talked to us today and said that he believes that what we are witnessing, this surprisingly close race on the Western Slope, is a turning point for his party and his state.
I think the heart and soul of the Republican Party is at stake. I grew up in the Republican Party. We were the majority, and now we're each and every year we have fewer and fewer members of the party, and they're all stuck on extremism, and they're not really very receptive to a big tent.
Military and overseas ballots in that and all of Colorado's races will continue to be counted as they come in until November 16th. And so will ballots that have signature issues that have to be fixed before the ballots are counted. When do you get to that automatic recount? That's triggered under state law if the margin of victory is less than or equal to 0.5% of the winner's total. Right now, as it stands, that would be about 770 votes. And as we said, Adam Frisch leads Lauren Boebert by 70-some votes. But we know that there are more votes outstanding to be counted. Frisch said on MSNBC this evening that out of respect for the voters, the loser of the race should concede. There's simply no other way to put it that last night, election night, was a catastrophe for the Colorado Republican Party. The closest that they came in a statewide race was an 8-point loss in the race for treasurer. Democratic Governor Jared Polis dismantled his Republican challenger Heidi Ganahl by 17 points as Ganahl veered to the far right to close her campaign with a baffling string of conspiracy theories, from election integrity issues to saying that kids are identifying as cats all over Colorado. Privately, Republican strategists will say they are in for a complete rebuild as a party.
One of the clearest measures of the collapse of the Colorado Republican Party can be seen in the performance of its statewide candidates since 2014. In 2014, all 4 Republicans running statewide topped 45% of the vote, and 3 of them won. In 2016, the 1 Republican running statewide did not get 45%. In 2018, only 1 of the 4 Republicans running statewide got to 45% of the vote, and all of them lost. And in 2022, not 1 of the 5 statewide Republican candidates got to 45%, and all lost by wide margins.
Any journalist who dared suggest that Colorado's big races were not likely to be close this year got harangued by Republican campaign operatives who often pointed to polling by the Republican firm Trafalgar, polling showing that the governor and Senate races were close. Well, it turns out that both of those polls were steaming hot garbage. They were not even close. But don't let that be your takeaway about polling in Colorado, that it was somehow inaccurate this year, because largely it was not. The polling, taken as a whole, predicted Democratic wins, perhaps not by such large margins. And we should say there was one pollster who did a remarkably accurate job down the stretch. So I feel like if we're going to criticize bad polls, we should give credit where credit is due. Last month, the Democratic pollster group, the pollster Global Strategy Group, and the pollster Andrew Bauman had Jared Polis up 18 points. People are like, whoo, that's a lot. Well, Polis's margin is currently 17. They had Democratic Senator Michael Bennet up by 11 points. Also, people were like, that's huge. Bennett's currently winning by 12. So you know what? Knock polls all you want, but they nailed it. A final thought on the potential upset of Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert in Colorado's 3rd Congressional District. If you watch next, you heard me say here that we did not expect that race to be competitive. We were wrong. I was wrong about that. I really underestimated voters' discontent with Boebert in the district. And I was also too fast to shrug off Democrat Adam Frisch's surge in fundraising because I thought it was just Democrats wishing that they could beat Boebert. Part of my job is to keep you from being surprised. I failed in this case, in this race. Apologize for that. In the future, we're going to be looking at what happened in Lauren Boebert's district, whether she wins or loses, trying to understand what we missed so we can do better preparing you next time for the result. But first and foremost, I want to say that I'm sorry. As we prepare for the Thanksgiving season, you're going to hear a lot about hunger in our state, about how 1 in 6 kids in Colorado don't get enough nutrition at home, about how 1 in 3 Coloradans struggle with hunger. And all month, our Word of Thanks microgiving campaigns will partner with our 9 Cares Colorado Shares Food Drive so that we can help nonprofits making an impact there. We're going to get things started with the nonprofit Food for Hope, which embeds its food banks inside schools in Adams County. They bring the food to schools because school counselors are able to help them identify families that might be struggling to get enough to eat. It's also a really easy place for parents to pick up food when they're picking up kids. And high schoolers, they can shop for their families themselves. Almost half of the students in Adams County qualify for free or reduced cost meals, so they rely on getting food at school. Food for Hope makes sure that they can also take some food home for evenings and weekends and for their whole families. They do this through their in-school food banks, through weekend take-home food bags, and through an annual Thanksgiving dinner distribution that they're getting ready now. If you scan the QR code on your screen, you'll get that link to donate, or you can find the link in the next section of 9news.com or on any of Next social media accounts. As always, to get us rolling, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 as we get started. As we head into this Thanksgiving season, I am grateful for all of those working to help Coloradans get enough to eat. And thank you for your help with that tonight. After a disastrous election night, Colorado Republicans truly have nowhere to go but up. So we will look at the path ahead for a party struggling to find its identity. Colorado Republicans were in a deep hole going into last night. They're at their weakest point in state politics since before World War II. So what did they do? They grabbed shovels and they kept on digging. It's a tough spot for the party now, and it's tough to see the light from the bottom of the hole. Marshall talked with one of the few Republican winners of the night who might just be the next big thing in that party.
Even I steam my shirts before work, but sometimes my story doesn't work out the way I expect, just like the end results from the Republican Watch Party last night. There was excitement to start. By the end, you couldn't help but watch the results with your jaw dropped.
I mean, you don't have a single statewide candidate get above 45% in a state. You're no longer really a party that has any chance to win.
Political consultant Mario Nicholas points out what Heidi Ganahl, Joe O'Dea, Pam Anderson, John Kellner, even Lang Sias for treasurer did not attain 45% support.
Because the Republican Party hasn't been putting anything forward other than bickering and fighting and screaming at the other side, they haven't given the people of Colorado any choice to elect them.
And it's not just happening on statewide races. If current results hold, Republicans will lose ground in the state Senate and lose ground significantly in the state House, with just 19 Republicans out of 65.
This next year will be very eye-opening for voters. I think they're going to see what they got.
State Representative-elect Rose Puglisi was someone Republicans wanted to see run for statewide office this year, perhaps governor. She did not. And now she's going to be at the state house, where Republicans are projected to have the lowest number of members in memory.
If people were most mad about one thing that they have seen so far, the 27-cent delivery fee was a huge issue for them. It'll be interesting to see what we can work on going forward to help alleviate some of those additional financial burdens on constituents throughout Colorado.
But voters knew about those fees when voting more Democrats in office this year. So what can help Republicans from needing consoling hugs next time?
I don't know that there's anything I could tell them that would help them to win. I don't think there's winning for them in the future.
Not with a map like this, for the time being at least. This is Rose Puglisi right there, the 19th House Republican. The Reds, they meet tomorrow morning to pick a new House Minority Leader. Of course, as we told you, House Minority Leader Hugh McKean passed away, and he would have to face election with his caucus. Anyways, they hold a meeting tomorrow to pick their new leader, and then they have a memorial service for him. All the Blues will meet, I believe, tomorrow afternoon to do the same thing, pick a new Speaker of the House. Couldn't tell you who's going to lead either party, and that's going to dictate policy, Kyle.
When Republicans were at such a low point a couple of years ago, we asked ourselves, who's up next for them for a high-profile race? And we said, Heidi Ganahl, fairly sensible centrist Republican. And then, Wingo, off she went this year and lost by 17 points. And we had the same conversation today. Who in the world is next? And there was silence.
Well, Rose Puglisi first says, let's unify the party, which was fractured within the state house last year with some extreme right and then some more moderate Republicans. Unify the party and see what we can get past. I'll be watching her for the next 2 years and see if she is the next rising star. Because we asked Heidi Ganahl herself that question 2 years ago, and then she became the candidate.
Maybe policies first and let the people follow, Put some policies out that folks like. All right, Marshall, thank you. Big business poured millions of dollars into convincing you to approve changes to liquor sales in our state. And voters went all Dikembe Mutombo and swatted that out of here. We look at why next. You proved last night you can't be bought, at least not for the cost of a stiff drink. An overwhelming majority of Colorado voters rejected a well-funded proposal on booze. And as of now, Colorado voters are narrowly rejecting 2 other alcohol proposals that were funded by big business. Voters soundly rejected Prop 124, which would have allowed liquor stores to open unlimited locations. As a result tonight, Prop 126, Prop 126, third-party delivery of alcohol, is currently losing, and voters are also narrowly rejecting Prop 125, which would allow wine sales in grocery stores. Supporters of those proposals to free up booze spent millions of dollars compared to very little spending from the opponents like the Colorado Licensed Beverage Association, which represents small liquor stores. The head of that group says these results show Colorado's voters are interested in protecting small business and craft beverage.
They continued to stress convenience, convenience, convenience. And I understand convenience, but I think what the voters said was convenience at what cost? And that's really what it came down to, was convenience at what cost?
Still too early to call who won the whole wine and grocery stores debate. That race is much closer than it was expected to be. No campaign's up by about 5,500 votes there. Finish with your feedback next. All month long, our Word of Thanks micro-giving donations will go to feed Coloradans in need. 3 weeks, 3 different nonprofits working to fend off hunger in different parts of our community using different methods. Tonight, we begin with Food for Hope. It's a nonprofit that embeds its food banks inside Adams County schools. They make it really convenient for parents or for older kids to pick up the food that they need for the whole family while they're there at school. And school counselors can help identify families in need and get them connected with that resource. Scan the QR code on your screen to get the link to donate, or you can find that in the next section of 9news.com or on any of Next social media pages. We're going to try to hit different parts of the community and different organizations that have found their own niche to serve that need in our community. We know that 1 in 3 Coloradans is concerned about where their food is going to come from. Feedback tonight. Terrence writes in to say, Colorado's next Republican leader, you just showed him. Don Coram, the state senator from the Western Slope who took on Lauren Boebert in the GOP primary and lost to her. Terrence says he may not want to do it, but he needs to. That would be a tough sell with Senator Coram, based on what I know about him. That doesn't want to but feels he needs to. I think that was the rationale that convinced him to get into that GOP primary against Boebert, where he probably knew that he was sticking himself in the wood chipper. I don't know if Republicans could convince him to do it again. See you next time.